Excel. So simultaneously, you would be able to learn both the things.
Okay.
Om Shahana Bhavatu Shahano Bhunaktu Shahubijam Karubhavai Tejashina Badhitamastu Ma Vidvishabhai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So today we will learn how to write the research proposal. Miss Priya Bharma, she will teach you how to write the research proposal. So Priya, you are the host now, so you can present your slide.
Yes, sir. So in the last 4 units, we have covered introduction to job analysis, selection, training and placement, where we covered the theoretical aspects of job description, personal specification, the kind of checklist and rating scale which are being used in personal selection, what are the methods which are used in job analysis, and you had to submit a report for unit 1, and the unit 2 was regarding systematic literature review on the 3 variables, and how to do the review, how to do APA formatting. And for that you were supposed, you were assigned the 3 variables: integrity, honesty, adaptability, achievement, motivation. For that you had to submit a review of literature on the allotted topic. The third unit was about methods of personal selection and tool construction, which completed the methods in basket, oral interview, group discussion, job related simulation, psychological test. And that was the first half of the methods. And we also covered in detail assessing personality trait of personal and describing items of the questionnaire, how to specifically take care of the items of personality traits in the area of personal selection. And then in the unit 3, we understood what are the details, how to tackle item construction, what is item construction, what are the things which we need to take into mind while we are constructing the items, how to design an instrument, what are some response types and where can be utilized, and how can content validity can be established if we whether we are going for a new test or we are adapting from an old test, or we are constructing a test on an already available construct. So in content validity, all these things were established. And in the unit 4, which was about sample survey and item analysis, we discussed theories of sampling in detail, item analysis, which included item difficulty and item discrimination, and how to calculate that. I would also be sharing a video of how to do item analysis for dichotomous items and Likert items in the WhatsApp group and in the Google Classroom as well. So far we have completed 4 units for the paper, which was theories and research, design and personal selection. Now, after completing all the steps of theoretical understanding of our topic, how to write systematic literature review, understanding the methods and writing an instrument, and analyzing the items. Now it is about the data collection. So whatever questionnaire you have designed, you have to collect items for that. And now I will be discussing, sir, what would be an appropriate number of data collection to check whether the instrument is good or not.
Sorry, I cannot follow. What are you telling?
Okay, sir, now that the steps of item construction, item discrimination, item analysis had been discussed, the students are now supposed to collect some data for their questionnaire. So what do you think is the right number for the same?
Right number for questionnaire construction? Or right number
Data
of
collection. Data
or
collection. How many?
yeah,
How
or the size
from
of
how
sample.
many people the data collection should be aimed at?
Okay. So in data collection, the most important part, that is your sample distribution, that should follow the normal distribution. It should not be skewed. Suppose you collected data from 200 people, but the data are very much skewed, then you cannot use that data. So when you want to use the data, when you want to collect the data from the sample, your sample should represent the normal distribution of the psychological construct. That means, suppose you are interested to assess the job satisfaction level of your employees, then you have to collect data from the employees who are relatively less satisfied and who are relatively more satisfied. Then the size is not the factor. Size is factor following the classification. In the normal distribution, you will find 6 classifications are there. Plus minus 3. 1, 2, 3, another 1, 2, 3. So you have to collect the data in such a manner so that the employees or the sample should be the representative of the any particular category of normal distribution.
Yes, sir. So how to check if the data you have collected, how to check the normality? So we would be doing how to check the normality if your data is following the normality curve or not. We would be proceeding to it in the next class. So I would be sharing a set of instruction on how to, I think it has been discussed. Yes, so you have to download RStudio in your laptop, so that now in the further, according to the syllabus, we would be now doing the statistical analysis. We would be determining if the data you have collected is following the normal probability curve or not, and if not, then what we need to do, how to calculate mean, SD, central tendency, correlation. So we would be doing with the help of RStudio. So if you are
Okay,
not
Priya, is it clear?
sorry.
Hello, Priya.
Yes, sir.
So whatever I have told, is it clear to you?
Yes,
Or
sir. Yes,
Yushati?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mhm.
I
But
think Iti
sir,
has joined. Iti has
yes, sir.
left.
Iti has joined. I just saw Iti has joined.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, sir, could we give them some number? How many data should they collect?
So you have to follow the stratified random sampling. From each strata, you have to collect the data following some proportion. That is always better. And the strata should represent the normal distribution.
Okay. Okay.
So it is not the size of the sample.
Hmm.
Size is not the factor.
Right.
Factor is whether you are collecting data from the each strata of the normal distribution or not. So we are suggesting at least 200 data we have to collect for any parametric statistics. But if you want to do some non-parametric statistics, then such huge number may not be required. So sample size estimation depends upon which type of statistics you like to use, number one, and what type of inference you want to make. Okay. And number three is your sampling distribution, whether it follows the normal distribution or not. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So they should learn something about the sample distribution, all those things.
Yes, sir. That has been covered in the lectures.
Okay.
So if they have attended
please
the
continue.
lectures, if they have attended the lectures, they should be knowing how to sample their data. And if they have any difficulty, we are always there for help. So today we would be talking about, okay, so before we proceed, one second.
Yeah, the thing is that number of observations are important.
Right.
Okay, the sample indicates the number of observations. I collected data from the 10 people.
Yes, sir. Hello? Sir, you're not audible. Sir, you're not audible. Okay. So before we talk about how to write a research proposal, can anyone help me with what is their understanding of a research proposal?
A research proposal is a concise summary about the future research.
Okay. Why are we calling it a proposal? Why we are not calling it a research paper or a dissertation?
Because it's just a plan about the research.
Exactly. Okay. So research proposal is a formal document which explains the plan of your research and why it is worth researching. So the research proposal, you are proposing your research that this is what my research topic is going to be and why am I pursuing it and how I am going to pursue it. So research proposal is a structured formal document that explains what you plan to research, why it worth researching, and how you plan to investigate it. So it answers 3 questions: what, why, and how. And now we also need to know the purpose of a research proposal. So the purpose of a research proposal is to convince your research supervisor or committee or university that your research is suitable for the requirements and it is manageable. So why we want to convince them? In other words, when we are saying we want to convince people with the research proposal, that you want to sell your research idea for approval, and if they are not convinced, then we might have to revise and resubmit. So this is why it is a research proposal. So when I spoke about it consists of what, why, and how, let's go into a little detail. What means the clarity about your research topic. So if you are writing a research topic, so when we are talking about research proposal, so whatever topic which was being given to you, achievement, motivation, or adaptability, so you have been allotted some variables, you still do not know the title, so you have to design a title for your research proposal that would indicate what would your research look like, or that would summarize your research in a form of title. So it needs to be specific and unambiguous. It should be clear exactly what your plan is and in what context. So a topic would look like an investigation into the factors which impact female generation Y consumer likelihood to promote a specific makeup brand to the peers, a British context, a manifestation of psychological adaptability, manifestation of this, manifestation, a correlational study of adaptability and achievement motivation in banking personnel. So a clear-cut title would explain what are the variables, what method are you going to apply, and in what context. And it should not be very long, it should be concise, not more than 10 to 15 words, very concise, very to the point, not very explanatory. And it should, from the research title, research proposal title, one should be able to understand what are you planning to do and what are you aiming at. So it should be clear and unambiguous. Okay. So what has been covered, the what factor has been covered. Now we also need to why, justification. So we have to justify why your topic is original. Achievement motivation has been studied over and over again in different contexts. Why are you going to study it? So what makes it unique? What gap is the current literature does it fill? So are you going to rehash your existing research, or are you going to do the same thing in a different context? So you have to make sure of the originality, but also the justification. So sometimes it might look like the topic is absolutely original, not one has heard about it, but what contribution is it your topic going to make if you propose it to students, or to propose it to your supervisor or your university? So what value is it going to add in the world if you manage to find answers to your research question? Suppose today I decide to make write a research proposal on the blood glucose level monitoring system. Okay, but how am I going to add with that instrument if I am making a proposal? It is already there and already the researches are going on, but what else I'm going to add with that research? If I'm doing a research on adaptability, the review of literature would show that this variable has been studied over and over again, and it has been studied in different contexts already. What I am bringing to this with this variable in my research proposal? So you should be able to justify, you should be able to defend why you are using that particular variable in that particular context, and what do you aim to find out, what questions are going to be answered. Okay, so this is the why. Ab how? How means your methodology. How are you going to pursue it? How are you going to achieve all the aims which you have mentioned? So it all good to have a great topic which is original and important, but if can you convince that you are going to do that? Suppose if you write a research proposal which says adaptability, achievement, motivation, integrity, and honesty on people of Mars, do you think anyone would be convinced by that? No, because first of all, it looks original, it looks interesting, but can you do that? No. So you should be able to justify how your methodology is going to achieve your goals, or the practicality aspect. How will you undertake the research? Is your research design appropriate for your topic? Is your plan manageable given your constraints? Sometimes we are very ambitious with our research project, but given the time, money, and expertise, will I be able to do that? I don't think so. So sometimes we have to also take into consideration of the time, money, and expertise. Suppose today I think that I should be testing CBT in Indian children in a rural background. If CBT is helpful in inculcating some of the habits. For that reason, I'll have to learn CBT from an expert. And if I plan that, if I'm choosing an expert, it should be none other than Albert Ellis. Albert Ellis is no more. Okay, I'll go to his institute and invest many dollars or a year understanding and learning that. Is it feasible? For some people, it might be feasible to learn a therapy and then apply it on rural children for their PhD or any research paper. But if you have very little time and you do not have that kind of resources, would you be applying that? No. So you have to think about the practicalities of your research, because the time, money, and expertise. Do you have enough expertise today? If you want to find out the gene pool of people who are highly intelligent, you might have an interesting and original idea, and you might also be having the research design which would be helpful in achieving the goals. But is it practical enough? It might be practical. There are some people who might be doing it, identifying the gene pool of people who are very intelligent, who are on the higher side of intelligent. But do you have enough resources to find every intelligent person in the world and find their gene pool? So these kind of researches take years. And if you are pursuing a PhD degree, if you are pursuing that research for your master's dissertation, it is not going to, the time frame would be very smaller than expected. Because, okay, sometimes, have you heard of longitudinal studies?
Yes, ma'am.
What are longitudinal studies? Iti, if you are there, I'm expecting you to respond on this.
Ma'am,
Yes.
longitudinal.
Longitudinal.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Longitudinal study is basically the
I
study
can't hear
where
you.
a sample group.
Could you please be a little more louder? I can't hear you.
Write it. So my network is a bit on and off.
Yeah. Keep speaking. I can hear you now.
You can hear me. Okay. So ma'am, longitudinal study is basically the study where the chosen sample group is studied for a longer period of time, and the same sample group is followed.
Right. Can you give me, Yashwati, can you give me an example of longitudinal study?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
One of my friend is working on longitudinal study. I'm actually, for example, if we are researching the career aptitude or career orientation of the students. So on the same data, if we collect collect their data on the first year of the college, and after 3 or 4 years or later on after masters, we can collect the data from the same sample.
Right.
Yeah.
So one more example of longitudinal study is, I want to give, maybe it is done in case of twins. So they want to study if the fraternal twins or twins can do, if they are reared apart, what effect are they going to have on their cognitive abilities, social abilities, if they are reared together, what is the nature and nurture differences, how would those manifest in the children. So longitudinal study is a continuous or repeated measures to follow particular individual over prolonged period of time. So if they are studying twins, they might be studying twins from the age of 5 to maybe age of 20. In some cases, the same sample was studied for their entire life with different researchers over a very long period of time. So a longitudinal study would be like that. But so if you are working for a big research project, then a longitudinal study would look interesting. But if you have a time frame to follow, that a 5-year PhD or a 1-year master's dissertation program, then it won't be practical enough. In that case, you will have to identify the practicality issues which come, which can be a constraint in your research. Okay, so you also have to understand when you are talking about research methodology, you would also have to mention whether it would be qualitative or quantitative approach, whether your design would be cross-sectional or longitudinal. How will you collect the data? Through interview, through surveys? How will you analyze your data? Through statistical analysis or qualitative analysis? So everything, you should have everything in mind before you are writing a research proposal. So now let's go ahead with the things which you need to include in your research proposal. So Iti, you have not been attending the classes, and for writing research proposal, some of your items should be ready. The questionnaire should be ready. We have discussed item analysis, and I would be sharing a video of how to calculate item analysis for each item. And you have to calculate, you have to collect data for your questionnaire. After collecting the data, and it is expected that the first 2 assignments, which were writing a report on your allotted topic and the literature review, have already been done. After that, you were supposed to design an instrument, and you have to collect data for the same instrument, because with the help of the data you would be collecting, we would be proceeding with statistical analysis in the upcoming classes. So you have to download RStudio, and we would also be doing some of the things on Excel as well. So it would be a good opportunity to learn the same functions on Excel and RStudio, because RStudio works as similar to SPSS, and it is free access. SPSS has a limited access, then you have to pay, but RStudio is currently has a free access, so you can learn it and use it for your upcoming researches and research projects and for your PhD if you want. But before writing anything, you have to write a research proposal. So now let's dig into how to write a APA style, an example outline of a full research proposal. So when we spoke about title, it must be specific, concise, 20-word limit, must include variables, must include mention of population. why should we have a mention of population? Because that provides context of our research. What if today okay, when the COVID was going on, the COVID wave was going on 2020, and we have very limited information. The first set of information which was released by Lancet study was done on China, because with the first strain of virus was originated there, and it started uh, from there, and then it started moving to different countries. So the first set of information and the first set of researches was done on China, and that provided us with a context that how the virus was behaving in China, and on that basis different countries were designing different methods of tackling it with their population and with their medical resources which they have in hand. So if you noticed, if you haven't seen any research like that, you would always see it would be mentioning it would be having a mention of the population, which means if the study was titled the effect of COVID-19 virus on Sichuan province of population, right? It is clearly mentioning the population, whether it was Huangzhou, whether it was Sichuan province or which province, because it was gradually moving everywhere. So it started from there. So in Malaysia, they might have done a different research, and similarly, many researches were being done in all parts of the world, and their mention of population was giving us a lot of information. So you must have heard, give me an answer after I have asked this question. You must have heard of how different kind of strains were affecting the population, right? There was some strain which was affecting the people of Italy very severely, but it wasn't affecting Indians. There was an Indian strain which affected Indians in 2021, but it wasn't very strong in different. So it also, why we mention the population, because every population responds to different factors differently. Maybe the strain which originated in India was not as lethal, not as infective in other countries. Maybe the US strain or the strain which originated in USA and UK wasn't very was weaker for Indian population. So how the each strain was evolving and having an impact on each population. So this is why we need to mention population. Population does not only means the population exactly that our northern area or our southeast area, but it can also be rural, urban. It can also be on banking personnel in Delhi, or in working teachers, middle school teachers. So mentioning of population provides how specific are you going with your study. So the title must be specific, must include variables, must include mention of population. So this is how you would be writing your research proposal. Let's go ahead. Now you have to write your next step would be writing your abstract in 100 to 250 words. Now 100 to 250 words, you have to state the purpose of your study, the population you are studying, the sample you are planning to use, your method, whether it would be qualitative or quantitative, what kind of instrument are you planning to use, whether it would be interview, survey, questionnaire, or a mix of all these things. So this would be abstract, and every abstract has some keywords. You would be mentioning the keywords in the bottom. So this would be abstract. Okay, so now in the research proposal, you would be writing your title here, introduction, first address the problem, state the overall area of concern, population at risk, injustice, need for more functional affiliation. So in case if your variable is adaptability, you want to address the problem that with the concern in the concerning banking or in a professional sector, in a personal selection sector, adaptability is becoming an important personality trait because the roles are changing, the demands are changing, and it is expected from every individual to adapt to different roles so that the person, the productivity and the kind of expertise which is expected from all the professionals can be met from single individuals. So adaptability is going to be very key area in this and this group, and not much research has been done. So, and providing some brief statistics to indicate the incidence of the problem. So this would be introduction. In the first paragraph itself, you would be highlighting why you are doing it. And then some ethical research issues such as does it add to current knowledge, or is it a test or a theory? How this problem area is going to affect individuals, communities, and society as a whole. So you must have introduction is not just about talking about the thing, but how your research area, your research title, or your research variables are going to have an impact, and how it is different from the previous studies which have been done. Next heading is variables. Conceptually define any major variables in a clear and concise manner. When we asked you to write an operational definition of your variables, this was the purpose, that every variable works differently in different contexts. You should be able to operationally define the variable in your study. You should be able to define, if you are talking about adaptability, you should be able to define adaptability. And if you are mentioning specifically of a banking sector or any sector, then you should be able to define what banking sector is and in which area. Next is summary. Summarize this chapter in approximately 2 to 3 paragraphs, because when you are mentioning everything, you always should, in the last paragraph, you should be able to summarize the points which relate to your study. Next comes review of literature. Please give me a second. Right. Now we would be mentioning the review of literature. So review of literature is summarizing what existing literature has to say about the problem and the existing solutions, what has been tried, what has worked, what has not worked, and why. So when you're doing the literature review, you would be mentioning all the variables which have been studied and which have not been studied, what worked in. So there are some studied, okay. So suppose achievement motivation has already been studied in a banking sector, but it might not be, the sample size must be really small, which is not enough to derive very strong results. Then you can increase the sample size, and if they were not including many positions, they were only doing on only doing the research on clerical staff, then you can include. So these are this is literature reviews done to identify the gaps. So let's talk about how to write a literature review. Okay, suppose it was done, a literature review was done on banking personnel, and it was done on clearly, it was done on clerks, it was done on the what are the staffs which are there in banking. So the clerical staff is there, the officers are there, and in some cases seniors are bank managers and everything are also there, and there are some other people who help us maintain the sanctity of banking operation. So all people are also there. So if you are studying achievement, motivation, or adaptability, or integrity, or honesty in a banking professional setup, so there might be studies which have only covered these two. This part was ignored. Then you can mention in your literature review that this variable has only been studying in context of clerical and official staff, but not the very senior staff, which have high it is expected that they have high achievement motivation, and their interests lie more into the for the company. Or there are also certain other people whose integrity and honesty must be studied, because a person, okay, suppose all banking, in all banks and everything, wherever very large amount of money and these things are involved, there is always a security guard. Has anyone studied integrity, honesty of a security guard? They must have studied, they might not have studied, but it is an important factor if they have studied or not. But what if an security guard reveals all the information, all the checkpoints of how to enter in the bank and let the, you know, bad things happen? So he is the security person is a key element which have to be studied. So this is how you understand the purpose of your literature review, and that's how we proceed with the literature review, stating the theoretical framework supporting the through theory-based presentation, how the previous theories are supporting, how the theories are negating it. So you have to take into consideration what things need to be worked on, what are the loops which have been left behind and could be possible research problems. And then after presenting everything which is already known, make your case for research, either answering a new question, getting a new answer to an old question, answering a question about a new population. So these are some of the things you have to mention in the last paragraph of your literature review, that what did you conclude out of that literature review. Sometimes we mention the literature review, but we do not know what to gain out of that. Why we are doing literature review? Because we have to understand what has been tried, what has worked not, and why. After all these things have been answered, a literature review should be able to answer some of the things, some of the loops which were left behind. If you are attempting to answer a new question, getting a new answer to an old question, answering a question about a new population, and then you have to summarize the major points, that this is how I'm going to proceed, and you will formulate your new research question and in your hypothesis. Now let's proceed with the next heading. Okay, now we have done the literature. After we have done the literature review, now we have to mention the purpose, introduce the general methodology most authors would have taken on this topic, and the one you would be using and why, and tie it to the literature review. Your purpose should be linked to the literature review, that in the previous studies, integrity and honesty has only been studied with the help of some interview method, qualitative method, but now you are making a tool and trying to identify integrity and honesty and achievement motivation with your tool and purpose. So the purpose is a statement of what you intend to study, not what you intend to find. क्या पढ़ना क्या चाहते हो? Next would be paradigm. So discuss your philosophical paradigm for the acquisition of knowledge. So the paradigm means what will you do? What what kind of philosophy will you apply? So this can be skipped. It is not very necessary, but it should be, it is around the theoretical understanding of how are you planning to proceed, and how are you what kind of acquisition of knowledge are you going to achieve through this proposal. And you will use this exercise to understand your own philosophy and knowledge acquisition and to be able to articulate it. So the whole idea regarding this paradigm is to do how are you going to answer the questions which you have mentioned. Will your idea is around answering it philosophically by using qualitative research? Do you want to understand how a person feels, or you want to statistically identify how many people in a banking industry are honest and have integrity, and you want to put a number to that? What is your philosophical idea of dealing with that problem? So the paradigm is, you don't have to specifically mention it, but it should be it reflects in your study design. So the next is your research study design, that should flow from your paradigm. So definitely the two things are connected with each other. Are you doing a qualitative or quantitative study? Is it exploratory? Is it descriptive? Or it is explanatory? And why? If you're mentioning it, then you should be able to defend. Please make sure whatever you are writing, you should be able to answer it, because whenever you are asked to present your research, it is called as defending your research. Why it is called defending? You are defending every single word you have written. And defending means you should be able to justify why I have written exploratory, not explanatory, why I have used experimental design, not correlational design, or vice versa, why I am constructing a new tool, why I'm not using an old tool. So you should be able to justify and give explanation of every single thing which has been written in your research proposal and later in your research article when you have completed it. Whether it is a within design, it is a between design, and what kind of study are being used. Is it an ethnographic study? It is content analysis of written material, it is a structured interview or a program evaluation, and why? So not just choosing this, you should be okay. If you are doing qualitative analysis, so there are different types of qualitative analysis. There is content analysis, there is thematic study, there is ethnographic study, there is phenomenological study design. All of them are analyzing the data qualitatively. You should be able to answer why, if you have used thematic study, why thematic study is the best approach for your study. If you are using correlational studies, you should be able to answer that it is mere coexistence of the two variables at each other, no cause and effect is involved. That is why I'm using correlational study. Okay, so you should be able to justify every single word. It boils down to why and why. Then now you have identified how are you going to do that. Now you should be able to mention the population and sample. What is the population you plan to study? Is it male, local, Singaporean sample? Or what is your sampling plan? It is convenience, it is stratified, it is random, and why? And give as much information about the population that has been gathered from your review of literature, age range, gender, mix, education. This information would be helpful in comparing to your sample's demographic in the result section. So if you are using a sampling design which is convenient sampling, then you should be able to identify that, you should be able to answer that, why I am going for convenient sampling, because it is not, the data is not available. So Yashwati was mentioning that her research, PhD research topic is enclosed cognition. So the sample would be very less for her topic. Then in that case, she would be using very different. Her sampling plan becomes very important, because she cannot use a sampling plan where she can get it is a stratified or random sampling, because it is not very easily available, right? So if you are supposed to do a study personality types on O negative population, will you be able to do a random sampling or convenient sampling? No, because that data is very scarcely available. Only a few thousands are, and it is very difficult to find O negative people. Then you will have to do convenient sampling, because you will have to go to only people who have O negative, and it might not be following a normal probability curve criteria. Then you should be able to justify every step why you did that. Next would be investigative techniques. Do you plan to use interview, behavior observation, questionnaire, etc.? So here, when you are writing your research proposal, you should be able to write what kind of plan do you want to employ, whether it be a structured, unstructured interview, closed versus open-ended question, and state the rationale for your approach, literature review, listing all the variables, which one is independent and which one is dependent, what level of measurement do you plan to use for each variable, because not every variable comes under the purview of dichotomous and Likert type. So what level of measurement are you planning to use for each variable? For some variables, you would be the response type would be yes or no. For some variables, if they are attitudinal questions, suppose what do you think about the government share on military budget, then you want to know the attitude. If you want to know, then you would want their response on a 5-point Likert scale or a 7-point Likert scale. So what level of measurement do you plan to use? And then instrumentation, do you plan to use a standardized questionnaire, or you want to instrument or you want to design your own? How does this instrument affect issues of reliability and validity? Discuss the questionnaire. If you are already using a well-established questionnaire or instrument, then discuss its reliability, validity, and then standardization. And if you are going to design on your own, then how that variable is going to help, that instrument is going to help with the goals and the aims of your research proposal. And how are you going to assess the reliability and validity for the same? How this questionnaire would be scored. So if you haven't done it yet, then you would mention that in the upcoming steps, reliability, validity would be established. So you can leave it, because it's not in your case, you would be designing a questionnaire, it has not been done yet, then you would be mentioning that the reliability, validity, and the test standardization process would be done in the upcoming steps. Okay, data collection. The next heading is data collection. How would you distribute your instrument, or where will you do the observation? What is your timetable, and what reminders will you give to respondents to get instrument back to you in the time to complete your study? Suppose you circulate your instrument to 200 people and only 50 of them are responding, and you require at least 100 to do some statistical analysis. And what kind of instructions are you going to share with your instrument? So you have to be very clear with everything, the consent. So in consent, instructions. So how are you going to do that? Are you going to target a specific population? So if you have a plan for that too, so how are you going to, suppose you are doing a multicultural studies, then you can mention for the first 3 months, I would be collecting data from Indian subcontinent, and then I would be collecting data from African subcontinent, and these I would be specifically targeting in these and these countries. And if I'm going for a different subcontinent, I would be doing it in the last 3 months of the year. So how you plan to collect data? So if your research has, if your research proposal has timeline or details like that, you can also mention it. Data analysis plan, what statistics do you plan to collect? Descriptive, univariate, inferential, bivariate, multivariate statistics, and how do you plan to do this statistics? Here it is also mentioned, it should also be mentioned what software have you used. So if you are using, are you going to use, do your calculation on Microsoft Excel? Are you going to use SPSS for your calculation, or R programming? Or if you are going for qualitative, what software are you going to apply for qualitative? And then some ethical consideration. Okay, so if your study has some ethical consideration, if you can see that some of the subjects, if they are children or if they are from vulnerable population, suppose you are doing it on you're doing it on transgendered people in India, then there are some ethical consideration that because it is a vulnerable population, and how are you going to be, what is your ethical approach is going to be, and what are going to be some power differential between you and your subject, and how will you protect them from any possible abuses? How are you going to maintain the sanctity of their confidentiality? And because if you are collecting data from a vulnerable population, what steps are you going to take to ensure that informed consent is there and no one knows about the population? And if you want to have deal with any sensitive population, then what measures are you going to take so that everything, even if you are conducting a research, you are doing it in a ethical manner? What kind of biases? So you don't have to write everything, biases, assumptions. So it is not mandatory. It is just in some research proposals, you have to mention these things because those are very clearly indicative and cause a lot of difference in your research proposal. So so if you're doing it on a multicultural or multi ethnicity study, then how might these differences impede your investigation? Invisibility, insensitivity, overgeneralization, double standards, dichotomization. So if these are some of the variables which might interfere in your study, you should be mentioning that. Assumptions, what do you okay, so these things are not important if your study does not have very specific population included, then you have to mention. So these things are some of the things which can be taken care of. Limitations, so limitation can also be about the inclusive and exclusive criteria, then how broad your topic might be, what are the topics you would be including, and what are the topics you deliberately are going to leave. Okay, and so because not every study is very comprehensive in nature. And lastly, the timeline. And if you are to follow a timeline, the start and end point of each of the tasks you intend to complete for your research, this will also include likely date of submission of your thesis. So this research proposal is specifically talking about a very detailed thesis. You don't have to cover all the headings, only the headings which are in relation of your variables. So this is a comprehensive outline. You don't have to use all the headings, only which can be applied in your context. So do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, Iti, what was the last class which you attended?
The last class, it was in last month, and it was about the questionnaire construction.
Okay, so I'm assuming that you haven't constructed a questionnaire yet.
Not yet, ma'am, but I'll be completing till the next class soon. Because I've been traveling all along through this time for
Okay.
attending exams, and I've been to Bhopal, then came back here, went to Bangalore and all. So I've been traveling, and I didn't have my laptop. So
Okay.
I'll be completing by next Wednesday.
Do complete all the tasks which are assigned for each unit. I would be giving a list of things which need to be completed before
Okay.
we proceed in the next unit, because this task, the kind of approach we are doing, it is sequential. Unless you have a questionnaire prepared or you have some data collected, you won't be able to do statistical analysis. So it is very sequential in nature. Unless you do a literature review, you won't be able to write the items. And if you haven't written the items, you won't be able to do the item analysis of which one to keep, which one to reject. And if you don't have an instrument ready, how are you going to collect your data?
Right.
So as sir mentioned, it could be around 200 people, but but you can try to keep it at least 100, so that we can do some amount of so even if you show up your research proposal and your questionnaire in the next class, so in the next class we would be discussing your research proposal, the status of your questionnaire, and how to move ahead. If you have any queries, we would be discussing everything in detail. And it is expected for you to show up in every class, because now all the things are going to be technical. The theoretical part has been covered. Now all the steps would be around statistics. If you go through the syllabus, it is all if you haven't gone through the syllabus, now we would be proceeding towards paper 2, 3, 4, and all of them are psychometrics based. You would be understanding how to calculate central tendency, variability, correlation, regression, cross tabulation, how to do test retest reliability, how to calculate Cronbach alpha, how to develop norms. So everything is now going to be technical, and the task would also be you examining reliability, you examining validity. So everything is going to be very technical in nature, and not just technical. We would be demonstrating it, and you would be doing it with the help of RStudio and Excel. So unless you are done with the previous step, you won't be able to get anything in the upcoming classes. Now everything is going to be application based from now on. So if you have any missing lectures, or if you want to understand anything, you're not able to get anything from the lectures, please feel free to get in touch. But please go through all the lectures, missed lectures. And in the next class, I would be sharing everything, a timeline of what should have been done. So in the Wednesday, please show up with your research proposal and questionnaire. This is for you, Ati.
Yes, ma'am.
Research proposal and a questionnaire. And for you, Yashwati, your questionnaire is done. Please make it, you have made it dichotomous. That means you have made it in a yes or no format. Please frame it in a Likert type scale, because those are attitudinal questions. Okay. So when we are using a variable like that, we have to keep it a Likert type scale. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
So also try to collect some data before we get into the statistical analysis. All the steps, please take care of all the steps, all the materials so we would be posting all the materials in the Google Classroom of all the PPT, all the material, everything would be shared in the Google Classroom, not in the WhatsApp group. WhatsApp group is only for updates. So please, if you have any query at any point of time, we would be very happy to help you. But please attend the classes.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Sir, I think I have completed for the day. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
So I am telling
Hmm.
that is, suppose you are interested to collect data from the 100 people. Okay. So 70 people, they will be from the general population.
Yes, sir. Yes, general population.
Okay. And the 30 people, they will be divided into two groups, high group and the low group.
Okay, sir.
So 15%, that is 15 people from the high group and 15 people from the low group. So if you collect in this manner, then you will find that is the better distribution.
Okay.
It's
So,
relatively better.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Relatively better distribution you will get.
So what,
For
sir?
example, you want to relate the intelligence with creativity like that. Then you have to collect the data that is from 95 to 110. That is the general population. And you have to collect data at least 15 people. They are above the 110. And you have to collect the data from the person who are less than 95 people. And again, you have to collect the data from the people who are highly creative. So that is the 15. And who are less creative, that is another 15. And the 70% total the general population. Then if you collect the data from 100, so if you plot the histogram with normal distribution, you will find better plots. And that is possible through the RStudio. Again, it is possible through the SPSS option. So if you want to show your distribution of the data, then you should classify the data. Okay, your sample, that should be classified. So if you think in this manner, then that will be easy. Another important part is the timeline. Timeline is vital because we are very busy with so many preoccupations. So we cannot follow the timeline. So that is very important. You have to follow strictly the timeline. Then you will be successful in your life. And definitely in your research proposal presentation. Okay. So these two things are very important. Please do follow it thoroughly. Okay, Priya. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it clear to you, Yashati?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. We can.
Classes, and please you finish all the tasks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. We are concluding our class now.
Okay, so please close your hands. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, sir. All the details for the upcoming class and discussion and the things you should be prepared with would be shared on the WhatsApp, and please check out Google Classroom for materials for each lecture that would be provided in the Google Classroom, the PPT and the things which you need to refer for item analysis and okay, so everything would be there. So please do check Google Classroom for the handouts. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, ma'am.